Day to you. What a privilege and a pleasure it is to celebrate the Lord's Day with you all for another Enduring to the End program. Let's open up with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you again for allowing us to spend a Lord's Day, another Lord's Day with you during this time of judgment, to be together, to encourage one another with songs and hymns and spiritual songs, Bible verses, and to share experiences to hopefully be an encouragement, Lord. Thank you for this program. Thank you for using unprofitable servants, the lowest of the low. We are the filth and offscouring of the earth. And could it be, Lord, that you might bless this program and that we would give thee honor and glory and that no one will glory in your presence? Thank you, Father, that you can use individuals to be used of you. Could it be, Lord, that you would bless this program, all the participants here, and those who eventually you will be bringing in. Uh, and thank you for saving that great multitude, which no man can number. And could it be, Lord, that we may be with you forever in all eternity for your name and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. Uh, First, I'd like to address everyone and just thank you all for joining this program. This is your program. And I'm very honored and delighted that I can be a part of it. And I'm an unprofitable servant. I'm very thankful and I'm very honored that I can come on a Sunday where we can share stories and to be an encouragement to one another. We're living at a very tough time. It's Judgment Day, and we are in the fires. The world is in a state of hell, and this program is designed for us to encourage one another and to find ways to be as effective as possible to feed the sheep. And throughout our many trials, whether they be physical and spiritual, we hope that this program can be a blessing and a source of encouragement, because I know each and every one of us may have some challenges, especially in terms of delivering this message as faithfully as possible and to be as faithful as possible while there are many trials that are going on individually in our lives. So I have a Bible verse that I'd like to share. Um, these verses came to my mind. This is Romans chapter 14, verses 5 through 12. And hopefully you all can hear me well. I'll start to read. This is Romans chapter 14, verses 5 through 12. One man esteemeth one day above another, another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. He that regardeth the day regardeth it unto the Lord, and he that regardeth not the day, to the Lord he doth not regard it. He that eateth, eateth to the Lord, for he giveth God thanks. And he that eateth not, to the Lord he eateth not, and giveth God thanks. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. For whether we live unto the Lord, and whether we die unto the Lord. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ both died and rose and revived, that he might be Lord both of the dead and living. But why dost thou judge thy brother? Or why dost thou set at naught thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, As I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God. So then, every one of us shall give account of himself to God. And I really like this verse because I believe that I may be in error here. You know, this program is designed to be a blessing and a comfort and a support for those. But if at any time I have made an error in terms of being too forceful or perhaps maybe too zealous where the flesh might take over, that can happen. I'm not sure if any of you have been on mission trips or domestic track trips who have worked with me in the past, you might see some shortcomings with me or with your fellow like-minded trackers. So these things can happen, and so we want to be kind and admonishing one another when appropriate, if God would allow that opportunity. But I think earlier this week we saw some comments in with, trying new things, and who knows, it may not be altogether pleasing to the Lord. And I think we have to humbly, submit to the Word of God if maybe there's some correction that needs to be done as we're trying new things, and to just to make sure that we're doing things that are pleasing to the Lord. So, uh, as we go through this Christian walk in our journey, there's going to be room for correction, and it's a wonderful thing to receive correction, even when tracting. Maybe there's some new technique or something that may not be entirely pleasing to the Lord, and you never know, someone could approach me or maybe even in the world. Someone in the world could say, "Hey, that's not right," and quick correction needs to be made because we are representatives and ambassadors for Christ, and we have to conduct ourselves in a way that's pleasing. That being said, I hope you all had a good week. Does anyone have any stories? I know I do. Did you have any opportunities? Perhaps did you go to the supermarket? Did you happen to see a cashier? Did you give the track to a cashier? If you didn't, obviously that's fine. No pressure. The Lord should be working in us to be doing these things. I see a hand raised. All right. Yes, Miss Yvette, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, bless the Lord's Day to everyone and to this program, which is very encouraging. And I won't miss it for the world. I, I won't miss any of these programs. But I just have a little mishap, something that happened. So, most of the time I wear the e-Bible fellowship, t-shirt, Why is the world so divided? I have a few t-shirts. So what I do is, I wear one day and then the other one. And then when I go to the laundromat, I wash them, but I don't put them in the dryer. I
Mm.
bring them home and I hang them up on my porch, you know. So last week I washed my t-shirts, I hung them up on the porch, and it was kind of windy. It was breezy, but I figured, they'll get drier faster. So, but I didn't notice that one of the t-shirts had flown away. The wind blew it, and I didn't even realize it, right? And guess what? The next thing I know, I go downstairs to get my mail, and the t-shirt was folded inside my mailbox. So I found that kind of awkward. And I said, people must be watching me or seeing me with the t-shirt, because I don't know who put it in my mailbox. Somebody picked it up, so they read it. They read Why is the World So Divided in the E-Bible Fellowship, you know, sign. So I was like, I found that kind of strange. I never knew who put it in my mailbox, but I'm saying people must be watching and seeing and reading, and then the person who picked it up maybe remembers me wearing it because I have no idea of who put that in my mailbox.
Special delivery.
Yeah. So, and I was like, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing that. What a story. It kind of reminds me of myself. I'm always dropping things, I'm losing things. Did I ever tell you all this story? My first mission trip in 2006, I was in Barbados and I had cargo shorts on. And one of my errors when I go tracting, if any of you have ever tracked with me, money flies out of my pocket. So I'm in Barbados and I'm crossing over a very busy street, and all my cash that we just exchanged flies on the freeway. And traffic is stopping, some helping and some running to pick up my money and driving away. And that was my first mission trip. And my last mission trip, I had money in my pocket and it carelessly fell out. So, yes, it's wonderful that someone, perhaps a neighbor, must have known that you've been wearing that shirt. And my guess is when they folded that shirt, in my mind, I was thinking it was probably folded with care. It wasn't shoved in there, right?
Right, yes, yes, exactly. They folded it and put it right inside my mailbox. And I'm wondering, like, who could have put that in I don't know, because I really don't speak to anyone around here, just hi and bye, good morning and good night or whatever, but never have a conversations with them. And when I do walk on my the complex here, I walk and I give out some tracts and that, but when I saw that inside my mailbox, I said, somebody's watching, somebody's reading, and I mean, maybe it was meant to be that way. Maybe that person, you never know. If that person who picked it up read it, and who knows? It
Right.
was God's will.
Right.
You
And it
know,
just shows that, on a human level, they are your neighbor and everyone helps one another. And
yes,
that's what kind neighbors do. Many a times I've left my dome light on in my car and my neighbors would tell me. Or if my cat went missing, I would see some of my neighbors helping us look for it. So great
right.
story, sister. And not to mention, if you lose that shirt again,
I
with
hope
the
not.
reputation, you
Oh,
gotta
and another thing, I went to not to Bose because I did read a comment, someone mentioning something about that we're not humbling ourselves by going out and making videos of ourselves, handing out tracts and all that. I did read that comment, and sometimes that was kind of like what held me back from calling in or saying or
yeah.
videotaping because but I did go to the doctor's office this past week. So I'm standing in line because there's one person in front of me at the reception desk. So there's patients sitting in the waiting area. So I'm standing there. And then all of a sudden I'm just turning around to check something in my purse. And one lady came out and said, wait a minute. Don't turn around because I'm reading the back of your t-shirt. Right? So I turned back and I let her read it, finish reading it. And she said, okay, I'm done. So what I did was I just gave a track. I said, look, if you want more information, here's a track. And I just gave track to all the patients in the waiting room, including the receptionist who kindly thanked me, for giving her a track. So yeah, that was something I wanted to share.
I appreciate this so much. I can't tell you. I don't know if this is my flesh, but I'm refreshed by stories like this. It puts a big smile on my face. And I'm sure the folks who are watching this program, they're probably smiling too. I can't see them all. But when you share stories like that, and particularly someone mentioning that we have to humble ourselves, and I could be wrong when I say this, but I know for me personally, I'm very shy, and I've had a rough childhood where I was always getting in trouble, and I didn't want the spotlight. Sometimes I'm a moth to a flame.
Well, I'm a shy person too, but hey,
But isn't it interesting from the perspective of someone watching this? It comes across as if we're very strong, and do they know how weak I am? You know, do
I
they
guess we are all weak in front of
and
God's eyes,
pathetic,
Yeah,
pathetic and weak. But from the lens from someone else, it
yeah.
appears that we're bold and fierce. But I can tell you it's not the case. These are just regular people, sinful people, hopefully saved by the grace of God, who are doing something that's outside of their comfort zone. They're praying for strength and boldness. And they are, how I ever heard this phrase, they are um, failing upwards. You know, they're failing
Yeah.
up, they're failing upwards is how I would say it. Because it's not there's no perfect tractor, there's no perfect person. We're all sinners.
Correct. Yes.
So thank you very much for sharing that. And
You're
may God
welcome.
bless you. And
Same to you
great
and
story.
everyone here.
How high was
Mhm.
the shirt? How high was your position from were you on the first floor, second floor, or
No, it's just a two floors. So I'm
two
I'm
floors?
I'm on the second floor,
Okay.
and I have a long porch.
Oh,
So
okay.
well, I don't like to put my t-shirts on the dryer because I don't want them to shrink or get
Yeah.
much. So I just hang them up to air dry because the weather's nice out and it was nice and sunny, but it was breezy, it was windy.
Right.
And I just thought of it as how, well, being that breezy, they'll dry up faster, you know. But I didn't realize that I had one t-shirt missing when I went to collect the other ones and fold them to put them away. I
Right.
didn't realize until I found I had got that t-shirt in my mailbox.
As Mr. Camping would say, lo and behold,
Oh,
the
yeah.
shirt was missing.
Yes, but I'm glad I got it back because I love
Right.
that t-shirt.
Great story. Thank you for sharing that. May God
Okay,
bless you
you're
as,
welcome.
as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Great
bye.
story. Yes, Miss Evelyn, go ahead.
Hi, Gary. I just want to
Hi.
say that I'm very happy with this program. I really appreciate what you do. And Yvette's story is so encouraging because I always wear my shirts. They're all different, shirts that I have. And I see people staring at it, but I know, really think that they're paying attention to it. But it's encouraging that maybe they are paying attention. Some of them at least, because I wear it all the time and I have a daily routine where every day is the same thing for me. So I'm sure, and I see the same people, and so they must be reading it, but they don't talk to me about it though. But anyway, I did go out tracking. I went to a supermarket with my friend Lou, who's from the neighborhood in Queens, where I used to live. And we met and we just stood in front of the supermarket and it was amazing. The people that were going in, the people that were coming out, they all wanted to know what it was about. And I had him next to me, so he was able to talk to everybody. It was wonderful. I didn't have to sit there and try to, be put on a spot to teach or anything because he was there and he's very knowledgeable about what's going on. And it was definitely amazing that day.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. I think I have photos of that. Is this Lou?
Yeah, that's Lou. Lou is so excited about talking about God, and what he knows to others, but he doesn't have anybody that wants to listen to him. The only one person that he knows of doesn't want to hear it. And so I just, gave him an opportunity and I recorded him and he was so happy. He wanted more. But I was like, you're not going to fill up my Facebook page.
Uh, Thank you so much for sharing. Would you agree that reception is not what it used to be? There isn't that awkward connection. People they're seeming to be a little more open in terms of tracking. Would you agree?
I totally agree with that. They're definitely more opening. They're more open to want to know what is going on in the world. Come on, it's so obvious that the world is in chaos. No one is getting along. You just turn on the news, you just turn on YouTube, you just turn on Facebook. It's everywhere.
Right,
Social media is bombarding, whatever they can about what's going on in the world, which is just proving that what God is saying is true,
right.
has been
Thank
saying.
you for sharing that. I saw those images of Lou. I didn't know his name. It's Lou.
Lou,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's a blessing that you went tracting with him and how active that we're going. And yeah, God gets all the glory. We're very unprofitable servants. And but I got to tell you, it's such a blessing that we have the opportunity to get out there and share these tracks. So thank you for sharing that story.
You're welcome.
And like you said, we have a routine. There are people watching us. Do not make a mistake and think when you put that shirt on that this is God's business. You have the shirt on. Yes, you're going here and there, but God can bring certain people into your purview as you do your daily routine.
Yeah.
So it's all glory goes to God. But sometimes I wonder, wow, I wonder if this person, saw this shirt because God timed it perfectly throughout their day.
Yeah, right. It has to, it has to be something because the one time I have I work with my sister and she has all these clients. She's, big business, and she has bosses. And when I do my hiking every morning, I hike with my shirts, always with a different shirt, so I can, show my shirt. And that was an opportunity that I can, spread the word, whatever, how, e-Bible fellowship. And one day I had a track in my hand and I was coming down and I said, oh, I got to give this track to somebody. And I turned back to give it to the man that was coming down or coming up. I don't remember which way. And I said, oh, excuse me, here it is. Here, take this. And then he turned around, he takes it and he goes, Evelyn. I'm like, what? Who is that? He goes, it's me. He's one of my sister's bosses. And I was like, oh wow, it's amazing. What a coincidence. Like what, how would, I never see him there. It was just such a weird coincidence for me to hand that to him. And I don't know, I just found that so odd. Him of all people, that we have a lot of issues going on with him and his company. And my brother has issues with him and he's not paying my brother. He owes my brother a lot of money. It's just a lot of problems with that man. And it just so happened that I see him and I handed him the track and I never tracked there before. I just used my shirt.
Right.
Just that one day I did.
Time and chance happeneth to them all, and who knows what God is using us in our shirts, our presence, our demeanor as loved ones. So for folks, thank you very much, Miss Evelyn, for sharing that. And for folks who are watching this program, and there's no way you could get caught wearing a shirt. There's no way you can, extend your hand and give someone a tract. Just to let you know, all of us can identify with that. We know exactly how you feel. God works in His own way, and there's a progression in how God does that which He chooses. And I can see Will; he's doing a great job. He's holding up tracks. He's holding up his shirt. I couldn't read your shirt, Will, because it was blurred. For some reason, there's like a feature on there. But if you don't mind, I'll come to you so you can tell me what it says a little bit. It says, "Oh, the promise eternal." Okay, yeah, that looks really good. It looks really good. Thanks for showing that, sir. Very nice. Yeah. So, anything else, Evelyn? You want to just?
Other than what Yvette said about someone making a comment, and it seems like the one who made that comment is someone who's actually looking at your videos a lot. So, because he's made this comment, like he's been, he said, why you're constantly making so many videos. So, I don't know. It was quite like annoying because the whole world has videos of what they love and the things that they love, their idols, and they post everything that they want to post. And why can't we post the things that God has told us to do? Why can't we glory in the things that we're doing for him, that he has commanded us to do? Why can't we do videos? Why can't we show pictures? Why are people saying that we shouldn't do it because it's not humility? That just was weird to me. I was uncomfortable with what he said.
I share the same sentiment as you, because sometimes I think if the world is ending, if I was in the world, if it was a movie, you typically see someone who knows it's the end of the world, they're losing their mind,
Yeah, right. They're running around
and then
buying, telling,
people are telling them, relax, it's not like it's the end of the world, and they get even louder, but we have to take that prayerfully, because from my humble experience in the past, sometimes when someone raises their voice, there could be a little bit of a verity in what they're saying. And sometimes I might be overthinking it, but sometimes it could be a warning. It could be a warning. So I don't want to quench this, if this is the Lord moving us to do it, we don't want to heed a critique that's not formidable, but I do think it would at least be wise to prayerfully, go to the Lord and say, Lord, is there anything in that's
right. I
deep?
did think that. What you're saying. I said, oh, could God have sent that person to do that, to say that?
Are
But
they
I
a
don't know.
tracker? Do they track? I could get in trouble for saying that. But you know what I'm saying. Sometimes
It's
someone
not easy going out there tracking. You get
exactly.
more rejections than you get, oh, give me one of those, You don't get that. You get more like, I don't want that, or funny looks or weird looks or you know whatever, but it's not
Weirdo.
easy out there. The sun is really hot, the weather is really hot, it could be raining, it could be very cold, but I'm standing there, my blood circulation is not moving. I'm standing in a position and I realize I'm doing it for 1 hour, I haven't moved with my hand extended. It's not easy, but I do it because I'm told to do it.
Right.
you know
You ever see Sister Beatrice tracking? Big smile, 24/7. Beautiful, big, beautiful smile. All the whole day.
I
Whole
know.
day. Just a big, beautiful smile. And everybody, Miss Antonia, active, tracting.
Yeah.
When someone sees these videos, they don't know that we're sweating
Yeah,
or we're,
exactly.
we're trying to be so respectful of the people as we do the video that we're,
Yes, that too. We have to consider how we're approaching. Am I smiling? Am I giving someone a look that's not appropriate? Or do I have something behind, that I'm not showing that they could see? And I have to, all those things that have to come into my mind. You just can't go out there and someone says, no, I don't want that, or give you a dirty look. You can't give them a dirty look back. You got
and
to
you have
watch
a few
yourself.
seconds. You have a few seconds to decide how am I going to comport myself to this.
Exactly.
And this
Exactly.
person comes, you have a few seconds or a half a second. How am I going to extend myself if this person doesn't look approachable?
Exactly. Even if they said no to you, even if they spit in the floor or whatever nasty thing they want to do, you still don't have to give them even a smirk, nothing. Just it's not, just pray, 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 to not give any appearance of anything to that person.
Yeah, and I would presume this is where my shortcoming would come in. Maybe I'm joking when I say it, when I say, where's my like-minded brothers and sisters to help, share this experience?
Yeah. Mm,
So it's
yeah.
always good to have other like-minded,
Yeah, it's always good to have someone next to
have that
you, with you.
fellowship of suffering.
Yeah, suffering with you, exactly. Like what the time when I was with Ozzy and someone took his track, they ripped it up, they threw it in his face. You know, I mean, what are we gonna do? Like I'm not gonna look at I don't, it just fear comes in. I was scared. I didn't want anyone to hit him. But it's you know, it, you can't, it's not about you, it's not about you at all.
That's right. Even though it may appear that way,
It may appear that way,
someone who's
right?
watching this, they're thinking, "Oh, this person's tracting, and look at them. They're just doing it so easily." Oh no. Oh no.
It's not. That's why the
That's
videos is not about us. The videos is about what we're doing. It's
encouraged.
not about us.
Yes,
That's all.
ma'am. And someone made a comment. Someone writes, the Lord deserves more praise and glory in videos and everywhere else than any of these other things that get filmed in the world.
That's
So
exactly my point. That's what I wrote back to that person.
yeah, and so, but we don't want to make them feel that we're attacking them back because maybe they themselves are doing that in a from a position of care. But
Yeah, yeah, like
yeah,
that's
when we go tracting, there's so many different personalities. You know, you always have someone who can always try to bring some brevity to the situation. So hopefully, anyone who's watching this program, if you are watching us do these videos, I can tell you, some of us are very gifted, like Miss Evelyn, extremely gifted at taking photos. Some of us aren't.
that's
So when we're holding that phone or that camera, it's a very, very intense thing to try to give a report of time.
exactly. That's another thing, is to take a picture at someone who may get angry and turn around. Don't take a picture at me. That could happen. Hasn't happened, but it could happen. And I don't want to do something like that where someone may get offended because I
Right,
took a picture of their face. It's just,
right.
it may not be appropriate.
And
So
we
I don't
also
know.
have guidelines in the ministry that we just can't do it when we feel like it. So not only is it sanctioned from a policy perspective of respecting people's privacy, but then there's also we have to do it in a way that's respectful to the individuals in a safe environment and
Yeah,
to also give a report to those who are watching. So uh,
right.
to this day, every time I go tracting, there's a little bit of nerves. Every,
There is.
For some folks, maybe they're natural at it, but for me, it's nerves. I
Yeah,
see.
wait, you
Uh,
did good when we went to Washington,
yeah,
D.C.,
by
though.
God's
You were
grace.
pretty good.
Yeah, we pray. We pray before we go out, and we ask for God to strengthen us, not using our own, power, but God would, give us, according to His will, the courage to just go another day, to just
Yeah.
just track another day. And sometimes, if you're all watching, if any of you have never been on a mission trip or a tracking trip, I'm not trying to discourage you. It's just a natural, fact. Some of us don't like speaking in public. You would think I like speaking in public. I don't. But some of us may not like these things. But you know why they're doing it? Because God commands us to feed His sheep. This is why we're doing it. If we're truly God's children, and we're not doing it for publicity. We're not doing it for
You
vain.
know, the one thing I know is that I'm a woman and I can't go out there and teach like, whatever, a man can do. I can't do those things. The only thing I can do is to get out there and hand out a track. So that's why I mostly do that. I hand out tracks, I go out track, and I try to make as much as I can. Whenever there's an event going, let me know, please. I'll see if I could put it into my schedule and I'll
Right.
make it. That's what I can do. So I'm gonna do with my whole heart,
Yeah,
while I
someone might,
can,
yeah,
Lord
someone thinks
willing.
I have to warm up to really talk to people, but I do my best. So,
Yeah.
everybody has their own strengths, their own gifts. Some of us, we don't track at all, and that's not something to feel ashamed of. Please, it's not my duty to how do I say, tell you how to do what God has put on your heart. Some people have
Yeah.
amazing talents. Some are good with technology. Some are good with studies. Some are good with the timeline. Some are good with, earning income in the world, and they're able to give in a different way, depending on what
Yes.
they're doing. So if you're not naturally a tractor and you're seeing me on this program saying, "Did you give a track to someone?" you know, we don't
It
want you
is,
to
it
feel
is hard, yeah.
we don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but I can tell you personally, it's hard for me to do those things. But by the
Yeah.
grace of God, I do it. And I tell
But God blesses you. He blesses you when you're out there in the world handing out a track, and those tracks speak of what God is saying in the Bible. He's blessing. He blesses me. He gives me strength when I'm out there. He makes me forget that it's hot. He makes me forget that I'm standing there for 1 hour with my hand extended and I haven't moved. He makes me forget about everything. All those annoying things, they're just not crossing my mind.
right. And sometimes it's 10 degrees outside with the wind chill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes you're thankful that the sun kind of, beats on you when it's freezing out. So there's different elements. I remember when I was attracting with you at the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and I'll just this is my last comment. There was a young man, he looked like he was in his mid to late 20s, dapper young man, and he saw me and he looked at me as if I was homeless, you know? And I just smiled, I said, "You never know. This could be one of God's elect." He did not take a tract. He didn't acknowledge me. He looked at me at the corner of his eye, but I could tell that he was not pleased to see me. And we had a sign that we were holding up that day. Who knows? Who knows if this is someone that God may have chosen? It's none of my business, but we are there to serve. We
Yeah,
are there to feed the sheep, and we are commanded. And that's another thing, sister. When God says, "Feed my sheep," it's not a maybe. It's a command that God is called on us to do. So we should all be aware that if we are, one of God's children, we should love our neighbor, and not just when we say neighbor, it's particularly God's people, those who He's called, and we don't know who they are. That's how we are called to feed the sheep. And who else is out there sharing this message? So
yeah.
it just gives me some excitement.
Yep, we're in the forefront.
Well, thanks very much.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks for the
Yes.
words of encouragement to the folks here as well, and sharing your perspective. Yes, Sir Tommy, go ahead, please.
Hey Gary, thanks and thank you. Mr. Camping used to always say, "Dare to be a Daniel," and that was always encouraging me to go out there and pass out tracks. I'm the type of person I have no fear of passing out tracks, approaching people. I wouldn't mind getting to a bus, handing tracks. Doesn't bother me at all. I have no issue with that, so I'm okay with that. And talking to people.
You have nerves of steel. I have some photos here, sir. You were just out. Was this yesterday, Saturday?
Yes.
This looks like a 6-second video. Can you set the stage for us? What part of town was this? And
So Gary and I were in the area where there was mostly Spanish, Portuguese, and a lot of Central Americans, and we were on a road where there was a prison nearby. So we were one end in the street, and so Gary and I would hand out tracts, and it was a very hot day,
wow.
and there was some, and we did. I like doing videos. I think videos are more visual.
Yeah. How are you able to do this? Because I tracked, and I guess Gary is taking turns, and you're taking turns on video production here.
No, it was Jason. He was
Oh,
doing
okay. Well,
yes,
credit to the camera person.
but
Credit to you. Good job.
yeah, but there were some videos where he would talk to somebody, I would talk to somebody, and we
Okay.
would, and we would take turns, and it was just something was very enlightening. We both were learning from each other,
Right.
and it was just a great blessing.
Right. So you've been tracting for many years, right? Right, Tommy?
From 20 years plus, yes.
Right. So it's would you say from the first time you tracked till now, would you say you've always had that gift, or did you hone some of those abilities by God's grace to get more bold in terms of um tracting with people?
Gary, I've always been a person that's very outgoing, um, energetic as a young person. So God gave me the ability to use that ability to go out there and track. Um, I would I would track anybody, no matter who the person is. Um, to me, that's the purpose of hitting a track to whomever it is God so will be.
Excellent. So if you don't mind, I'm going to play this one, and you can just after the video, you can just set it up for us. Okay, it's a 17-second video.
Uh, Pretty much end of the track.
Right.
I know there was one video where I was talking to a young lady in the car, um, and
Oh, that video. She looks like she asked for another one.
there was one I ran across the street, and there was a young guy on the bicycle too. I was telling him to, you know, don't discontinue it. Just read about him right there. And I think he was one in Spanish or English. I don't remember. And he was very nice. And we were showing him the website, so he can go to the website.
Great job. Great
So
job.
we did that a lot. We were pointing them out to the website.
You
A
had
lot
your
of people.
Spanish. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Gary, I have another question. So some of my coworkers, I'm with them on one-on-one, and a lot of people I work with are 7-day Adventists, which I
Hmm.
didn't know. And talking to them about the Bible, about the 7 day, it was very difficult because they're so ingrained onto this Saturday going to work on church on Saturday, and explaining to them about the new law and the changes that they're just very stuck in that mindset on Saturday going to church.
Hmm.
And then wearing the shirts, I wear my shirt like if I'm going shopping, the grocery store, to the malls, out in the street. parking lots, and I get a lot of looks. And a lot of people take pictures of the shirt.
Right. Ah, now would this job be open enough to have this dialogue or
It's usually when we're away from the office or
okay.
building and we're out in the streets. And that's the time I said, this is the perfect time to have a one on one conversation. And then you come back and then you just go back to business work.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, by God's grace, that's a wonderful thing. If it's all, in the open, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I could be wrong though. So you got to pray for wisdom, and maybe you could ask on the Q&A program, that interaction. But for me personally, I have given someone a tract on my job, one of my previous jobs, but it's more of a rough and tumble kind of place. It was like for construction and installers, and they curse all the time, and so I didn't find it to be in the environment in which I would get reported because the men there they're kind of rough around the edges. So that was my assessment. But if someone's in the church and you're giving them a tract, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if they have dialogue, that would be when it might be best to abstain, in my humble
But no,
opinion.
this is where let's say I work for Porsche and we are, let's say, doing, heading to a customer's home. And, we're in the car and then having a dialogue and it talks about anything related to church. So I said, "Oh, this is the perfect time to let them know. Hey, you know, that's when it will come up."
That's going to be a rough ride, I tell you.
Actually, it was very cordial.
Okay.
They didn't understand. They didn't know. I was like, I didn't know this, and and no issues. It was
Oh, great.
yeah.
I'm sorry I was a little distracted. I read a comment. It was pointed towards me, and I'm sure all of you raise your hand if you agree that I call the Q&A. I'm America's Most Wanted with the Q&A with my long questions, taking up the taking up the episode. But the Q&A is one of my most uh, prized programs on eBible Fellowship. The Q&A is such a great program. I hope and pray that all of us are aware that this is one of the best opportunities to call in with your question. And I hate to just change the subject with that quickly because I saw that comment. But the Q&A is just amazing. If I could call every day, I would. If they if they had the rules, I would call every day. But I will definitely work on that. I'll give the opportunity for others to certainly call in. Um, but I have loved ones who are in the church. I'm not sure if you all in the program have loved ones who are still in the church. And even though they know where we stand, they will still talk to us about doctrine. And it's like, oh, I really want to, keep going. It's almost like a moth to a flame. It's like, oh, I'd love to share with them, something I just learned from the Bible. Or they'll tell you about, what their pastor told them. You know, I can tell you one quick story. Someone told me, and they meant it in a loving way. They said to me that, my pastor told me in order for me to love my husband, I have to treat him like the Lord Jesus with dementia. And she laughed. And it was sacrilegious to me. And I was troubled by it, you know? And the conversation just kind of fell because I couldn't laugh and I couldn't respond in a way that made that person feel that I was in agreement. And so, unfortunately, there's no way to dress it, to dress it up or to make it seem like we can have, that kind of cordial conversation, unless, the topic is not very, troubling. So yeah, pray to God for wisdom. It would be a great Q&A question. I'm not qualified to answer that, but Tommy, and just want to continue encouraging you when you go to Connecticut with Gary Latner. You guys are the power team. I'll see if I can show some more pictures later on. Um, Matter of fact, maybe I can just share one right now really quick because it's just showing up here. Can you just tell us what's going on with this one? I think you're at the
No, I ran across the street because we were walking.
Uh-huh.
I saw her, and I just said, "I'll be right back. I'm going to run and give her a track."
Oh, great.
And then someone told me she was reading the track when my back was turned. Then that was it.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
a couple more here.
And mind you, this was like almost 90 degrees weather.
Just to let you know, I'm not as a good tracker as Gary here. If this gentleman passed me, he's like off limits. But Gary, Gary called him and said, "Sir, I got one for you." So
Well,
that's excellent tracting
well,
there.
remember, Gary never would have done that. So he would look at me and say, "Well, if I can do it, he can do it." So it kind of inspired him to do it. So he's getting better.
And look at this comment here. But when thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Now, this verse is a very good admonishment that when someone is giving their alms, and when we call it alms, I'm not a teacher, but this would be a great question for the Q&A. But I do not think that when you go on a mission trip, if you're recording it, that when someone is giving alms, that the left and the right hand have to do with a visual perspective of what's being here. I think there's more of a spiritual component to the left hand and the right hand in terms of what God is teaching here. But this would be a great question for those who are in the camp of no videos, no showing of tracting. This would be a great question. Here's another one.
But I think to me, videos are a good visual. They kind of give a sense of what the environment looks like,
Yes.
and you could see like a telling of like where I'm going and how the reaction to the person receiving the track.
Right. But
And
we're open to correction. Sometimes there are things that need to be addressed, so this is where humility comes in and proving all things. And this is what makes, e-Bible fellowship or back in the day when family radio was faithful, is that when these things come up, you know, they're not taken lightly, prayerfully they're addressed and hopefully resolved. So
okay, well, thank you so much,
thank
Gary.
you very much. Yes, Zoom user. Ms. Beatrice, please go ahead.
Hey, hi, Gary.
Hi.
Two things. About I did not read the comment about taking videos,
Hmm.
but I did listen carefully, and you've been talking about it a while. I absolutely disagree with that person because we need to enforce exactly what this program is about, encouraging others to do what is not something that would normally be a part of our everyday life. Interacting with total strangers, um, offering them something, that's not a common behavior. And so everybody, yeah, I'm sort of like Tommy. I do like people. I like people, all kinds of people, and so um, I'm I'm so happy to be able to honor God in doing what He commanded, and so that's my focus. And I want to say, like, I enjoy it, but to have the video there, and I am so happy when I can track with Evelyn or Michelle, because I know that they are so quick. They see things that I don't even see. The interaction between handing a track or someone asking a question about the track, we're involved. The person I'm involved in that, and without knowing that, Michelle is videoing it. and then when I see it, I'm like, oh, wow. I'm so busy trying to talk to this person, and she's taking the video. So it is a very good instrument to show how it is done, with ease, and not only with ease, but the fact that with sincerity in how we are carrying out God's command. And so, um, you know, I'm not impressed or concerned about someone's opinion of that, especially someone that doesn't track. But we always pray before we go, whether we do it individually in the car before you get out of the car, checking to make sure you have tracts in your bag or in your purse or something. Um, it doesn't, we begin with prayer when we're in a team. So we know what our grounding is.
Right.
And then we don't have to think about it. So that's my take on that. But the other thing is, I wanted to tell you that I had a painter getting some work done at my home, and we needed some more supplies. So I went with him to Home Depot. It's where I was getting all the stuff. And I'm sharing tracks, as you know, there's always, you can tell who to share it with because they got these orange aprons on. And so I'm giving it to the employees while we're walking to the aisle that we need to get the stuff or whatever. And he's looking at me. And my intention was, get the work done. And when I pay him, I give them a track, usually before they leave. And anyway, so I had not given this workman a track. And I saw him turn around and look at me because I'm behind him. And I was giving out these tracks to these workers. And so we got in the car, and I said, I know you're wondering what I was doing. And he said, yes. And I said, well, here's one for you. And he said, oh, you saved the best for the last. And he took it and he said, I definitely will read it. The places that you are, having prayed before, God just opens up the opportunities.
I agree.
And that's my comment about, places to share and why we're doing this.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. And this is a wonderful opportunity for folks who may not feel comfortable tracting. When a contractor comes into your home, or you have someone who has to be nice to you. You can practice on that. Just keep that in mind. They have to be nice to you. They come in your home, they have to be professional. They're trained up, you know, and it's really good practice to offer someone a tract. And as far as when you said someone giving a critique and they don't tract, I totally understand where you're coming from. I think from my humble perspective, I'm a little tempted to think that way as well. But again, we prayerfully consider it, and could it be that the person who's giving such a critique, um, it could be a blessing towards us? Maybe there's something we need to consider, or maybe how we're conducting things. But this program is not just for folks who tract. These are for people who have a shirt. These are people who, if they can't tract, they can put a tract in their breast pocket. If for people who are infirmed, maybe you're bedbound, and maybe you can leave a tract by your table. Or maybe you could, if it's not in an inappropriate setting, you could verbally tell someone something. But this is God's salvation program, not ours. This is God's business. And God is about the business of witnessing. He uses the foolishness of preaching.
I don't think the person was making a comment about tracking, but the videoing of the tracking.
Nice.
And that is the encouragement, or for the purpose of encouraging people to just chance by chance. The reason for us to be giving
Right.
stories that Yvette gave about her shirt flying away so that somebody could actually pick it up, read it, and fold it up. Those are the things that uh, give encouragement that,
Evidence.
yes,
Very
exactly. And so I think that we need to continue doing it and sharing it in
Yeah.
any way we can, telling about it, videotaping it.
Yeah, I find it's an encouragement. When I was doing these videos, I do it because if they're thinking the way I'm thinking, we need to tell folks, just pray, ask the Lord for strength. And if someone says no, that's none of our business. We just make ourselves available. That's really the crux of it. And thank you for sharing your story with the contractors, saving the best for last. Having those tracks when folks come in, these are opportunities. And it definitely, and you can agree, sister, don't you feel good after you've done it? Don't you feel like they're walking away and you shared with them something that could potentially have, a great effect in their life should God have had chosen them, having had mercy?
I don't know whether that's the feeling or the fact that, thank you, God, I did what you ordered me to do. That's my focus. Am I obeying God's command? The other part of it is not my business. It's not my business. Whether they read it, whether they, threw it out the window, I don't know. But I know that my assignment is to offer the track, give them the track.
Right.
That's where my part ends.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that, Miss Beatrice. And another thing, there's only a few of us. So it's not like you ever see the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're all on the street and they're just standing there like this. They say hello and they're by their stand. They're not engaging with anybody. I wonder if that's what they're asking of us to do. Just let the people come to us. If they want it, maybe they'll take it. No, we're out there, hopefully by God's grace. Um, it's an encouragement. So thank you again, ma'am. May God bless you. And let's go to Chris McCann number 2, or is that you, Carl?
Yeah, that's
Hey,
I
Carl.
got several accounts running. No, I just wanted to second what or third what Evelyn is saying about not Evelyn, Beatrice, about the videos. I could see why somebody might think it's vain or vanity, because you do have a lot of people like on Instagram, different social media platforms who, they're there to get attention and stuff, but we're not doing this for ourselves. We're wearing shirts, and it can actually be, in the world's eyes, humiliating to wear this type of stuff. So we're not going out. When you put on that shirt or the track, people view you differently than when you're a civilian wearing casual clothes. So yeah, I just wanted to.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's another thing. I have a story to say myself. I live in Phoenixville. I don't know how true this is, but I saw an article when I was trying to get onto eBible. It said that town is voted the best small town in the country. And essentially, the streets, the intersections have rainbows on it. And that kind of gives you an idea of what kind of town it is. Very open, very free town. And it's voted the best town. And so, not too far away from there, there's these high-end markets. And I have this Why is the World So Divided shirt. And I went inside, and it was almost like the music stopped when I came in. And all eyes are on me, and I'm feeling nervous. So truly, it's not something like you said, Carl, that we want that kind of attention. It's not positive attention, but every once in a while, it's worth it all. Hey, do you have any stories like that, or?
Yeah, I might. I might. I was just thinking. God's elect were put to shame, an open shame with sharing the gospel, right? And that's why Paul was moved to say, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of truth. So it was never, we never went out with that idea, that somehow, for our own glory, right? There's no glory in it for us to do that. When you're out there, it's, you're putting on, you're not adorning yourself with worldly adornment.
Right.
So I don't think, and especially with video, God has raised up video, so we should use every means possible. And video happens to be the most, probably next to audio, as far as the most used platform. Like YouTube. YouTube is, I don't know if people know this, YouTube is one of the most popular social media platforms in the world right now. I think even over Facebook or any of those other platforms, and YouTube is just about videos, pretty
It's
much.
overtaking television in mainstream
Oh
television.
yeah. I think they compared it with TV, everything else. Like YouTube's like at the top, I think. So
Right.
we're on the right platform as far as all these videos and stuff. So it's just a matter of getting exposure
Right.
as God allows it.
Right. And I would just think that maybe perhaps if someone is coming from a place of admonishment and they're saying, well, why all these videos?
Hmm.
It really because it's just an effective way as if you're doing it out in the real world. It's just, how do I say it? It's like watching someone literally doing it. It's just a stored file, almost like a
Yeah,
teaching.
it feels like you're there in
Right.
person. And also here's the thing, in times past when you went out to go pass out tracks, the only people you reached are the people that saw what you handed out. But with video, we live in a very interesting time, prior to May 21, because we didn't really had cell phones had just come out, like smartphones.
Right.
We never really had the social media blow up in the way it has. And so it's created an interesting situation. Like we went to Argentina and we were in that protest. And that protest, thousands of people saw our signs and tracks. But here we're able to post those same videos on YouTube, and thousands of other people who could be around the world saw that
Hmm.
and saw what we did.
Almost magnifying it in a
Yeah,
sense.
it really helps to magnify it. So I would say it's almost equally important to have videos while you're tracking, because you may actually end up reaching more people via the video that you filmed than when you actually went out to track. And so it really helps to, like you said, magnify that effort.
Yeah. So I would just, I guess, if there is any admonishment, we just have to conduct ourselves in a God glorifying way, make sure that we're not appearing to be judgmental when we're tracting, to be humble, and to conduct ourselves in a way where we're approachable. But yeah, thank you for giving that perspective. It's making me think of it in a different kind of angle.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Carl. Miss Sarah, please go ahead.
Hi Gary, hi everyone. So I was out tracting yesterday and somehow I stumbled upon a gay pride event and I was a little weary going into that because, just naturally I would expect rejection.
Right.
So right before I got to the event, there was a gentleman in his car. Well, he was standing outside of his car. My mom went over. She gave him a tract, and he told us, he's like, yeah, this is an event for gay pride, and I'm just not really about it. I checked it out, but I'm not really comfortable with it. So I'm out here, and he was like a breath of fresh air because he took the tract. He was like so on board with a lot of the doctrines that we believe. So my mom, he had us laughing a little bit. We had a good little conversation. And then that set like a solid ground for my mom and I to have a little bit of confidence going up to these people. And, we just went about our business as usual. And it went fine. And I think that's just a reminder that we're not are respecting anyone. We're not judging anyone when we're going out. We have to approach everyone, like, as much as we may not want to go up in these situations, do it. And if you're rejected, just dust off your feet and keep moving forward. Because we definitely received some pushback throughout the process, but you just have to keep moving forward, like, it's literally like the task at hand. And
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because I also tracked it at a Pride event. They blocked off the street, and the difficulty level was extremely high for me. But you're right. If we're not respecting persons and we're treating people like human beings, we're not looking on the outward appearance. These are just regular people. It won't be so difficult. And that person breaking the ice, I think was, sometimes God can allow these things to happen. It just kind of, break the ice and shake off some of those jitters before you give your first tract out. So I don't
There
know.
was a we
Go
were
ahead.
in we were in Brazil, Sao Paulo, Brazil, a few years ago. I think prior to 2015, and we went right through I think it was a gay bar or something outside. It was all outside, but we just went straight through. And
Right.
there were people taking the tracks, and we actually had a good conversation with one of the people there. But yeah, I mean, just because somebody's open about their sin versus somebody who's not, it's all the same,
Right.
whether you're passing that to them or to somebody else.
Yeah. So thank you, Sarah. Great story. It's good to know that, this is like a program where we're all comforting one another. And sometimes even from within, we're getting admonished. And you would think that we're like hopping up and down and on cloud nine when we're tracting. But hopefully this gives you all an idea that when you're tracting, you have to be careful of your surroundings. You also have to trust in the Lord and not lean to your own understanding. You're not judging people based on their appearance. You're wearing your shirt to identify yourself. And as Carl just stated, there is a bit of shame involved. You're standing out. You're letting people know that there's a specific message. This is different from just about probably anything they've heard in relation to the Bible. And we're standing up for hours, right? Some of us may want to use the restroom. Some of us are getting hungry. I see Miss Beatrice has, yes, ma'am. What would you like to say?
Carl reminded me of an incident in Brazil. Uh, it was at night, and normally nighttime is not the best time to hand out tracts, especially downtown where there's bars and other kinds of things, but then they really start getting kind of raucous. Well, I was on a corner handing out tracts, and it was a gay bar, a couple of gay bars around, and these two men come up, and I offered them a tract. But when they got really close, I could see they had been drinking. And so now they're going to, for fun, sort of challenge me. And so you're telling us that God is against gay people, and so you think that we're not going to heaven or something to that event. I can't remember exactly, but that was the tone of it. And I looked at them and I thinking to myself, nothing I say is going to register or appease them. And I said, listen, guys, I'm dealing with my own sin. These are some facts. You read it and you determine what you think about your sins. I don't have anything to do with your sin. I was like, what? We're all in here together. You decide what your sin is, and I'll take care of mine. Take the track and read it. And they just laughed and walked away. But it was almost like they were trying to set me up to give them some type of lecture about being gay or not being gay or something of that sort. But it wasn't my idea. I didn't think of this or plan this in my mind. It was what God gave me to answer. Because when they walked away, I was like, whew, you know, what was all of that? And thanking God that one, I was able to, avoid any kind of interaction with them, and they took the track. And that was the end of it. All I needed to do, my part, give them the track. And it's just what Carl said about, just being in that kind of environment. God is still with us.
Sounds like it was the same trip.
It was. You were
Yeah.
there.
You know,
It was. But that's it. That's it.
location.
I'm lowering my hand and saying goodnight.
Yeah, do you know that Bible verse in Matthew? It says, "Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say
Yep. Yeah.
manner of evil against you." God says, "Rejoice and be exceeding glad." And I think there's another verse that says, "Shout for joy." If you fall into
Encounter. Yeah.
situations where you had to think on your feet and you had to, and by God's grace, you were able to, get out of that situation. So again, folks who are, sending admonishment to folks taking videos, please just know that these are situations where you have to go humble, you have to be aware of your around surroundings. You have to be safe, and you have to be thoughtful and caring for the people as you're showing these videos. It's not some kind of easy thing that we're presenting to everyone. There's a lot of planning and care that's involved when we present these videos. Well, thanks again, Miss Beatrice. Just to remember, I do have that story I wanted to tell you. I was at a farmer's market in a very high-end area. It's called Radnor, and they were open just a few days. And I went there. It was my second time. The first time I went there, I had a Why is the World So Divided shirt on. And I walked around. I didn't have any tracks with me. I walked around. I got a sandwich for breakfast, and then I left. And I made sure I walked around just so people could see my shirt. And the second time I went, which is last week, I went to the same place to get a breakfast sandwich, and I noticed something. There was a gentleman who was at like a deli counter. He got outside of the deli counter, I and walked up to me, and he looked at me and he looked at my shirt. And I looked at him and I said, "Yes, the world's divided, right?" And he said, "Absolutely." And he told me, he said, "Well, I'm reading the Bible now, and I totally agree with your message." And I said, "Well, I do believe the world's divided, and unfortunately, the church age has come to an end. So we're learning from the Bible. It's just between you and the Lord in the scriptures." And he just gave this statement like, "Oh yeah, really? Wow, wow." And so I said, "I just want to thank you for encouraging me and just talking with me. It's not easy to come into this high-end, farmer's market wearing this shirt." And you know what the young man said to me? He said, "Oh man, don't worry about that. That's no, no, do what you're doing." It was almost as if he was admonishing me not to even worry about that, not even
Mm-hmm.
1 second. And I'm thinking, well, he's not wearing the shirt. I'm wearing the shirt. He's telling me don't worry about it. But what I think he's trying to tell me is you have to have boldness, boldness in the day of judgment.
Yep.
You have the shirt on, wear the shirt. And this is why you're wearing the shirt, so that when somebody sees you, this is the second time you've been there, because like Miss Yvette saying, you don't know who's watching you. Miss Evelyn, you have a daily routine. There's people watching you. You have no idea they're watching you. So if you have a shirt, please wear it. If you don't have a shirt, you can just, hold a tract in your hand and you're waiting in line. I don't know. You'll think of something. God, pray to God for wisdom. If you don't have the resources to have such an item, maybe you can. I have a computer. You can type up "Why is the world so divided" and tape it on your windshield. And as long as it's safe, not your driving windshield or your rear, the passenger, or even on your car, you can think of something. Pray to the Lord for wisdom in those manners. But thank you again, Miss Beatrice, for stating that. Yes, Carl, go ahead.
I just wanted to show an update on the website. I forgot about this.
And
If you
Carl, yeah, feel free to go ahead. You can co-host and interrupt me if necessary.
Yeah, I figured this is a good program to keep up with that, because sometimes we make changes
Okay.
and it's not always known. Interested in converting dates from Gregorian to Hebrew dates.
Okay.
So the Hebcal, it's basically similar to the website Brian was using, but we have our own version of it.
Hmm. And
And yeah,
yeah, go ahead, sir.
so I'm sure everyone's familiar with the May 21, 2011, right? It falls on, just type that in.
So this
And
index has a month, day, and year on the Gregorian date to the left.
right. So whatever Gregorian date you put in, it'll convert to Hebrew and vice versa.
Oh,
So the 17th day of the second month, IR is the second month that Noah entered to the ark. It lands on May 21, right?
mhm.
And I something unique. So you can put in any date,
I have a question for you, sir.
Yeah.
That number 5771, is that 5,771 years from 2011 to 4990 BC? Running back?
No, this
Five-
means when we hit the year 2011, this is how old the Jews think the world was.
And
Five.
or based on the Hebrew calendar.
This is based off their erroneous understanding of how long the timeline is, kind of like the bishop the Usher's calendar. So theirs is just under 6,000 years. So right now, if I type in the year 2025, that's the year that they think we're in
Oh,
biblically. But we know we're in 13,000 and I think 37. So but still their calendar is still there, so you have to align it. So their year aligns with 5771 of their year aligns with 2011. Um, Basically they think that about 3,700 years of history existed before Christ. So whereas we're saying no, it's actually 11,000. So
okay.
it's a lot less. So you still have to line it up with that. Like we know God gave Noah a 10-day warning, 7-day warning. So on the 10th of the second month would be May 14th of 2011. But then 7 days later would be the 21st. Now, I just wanted to show you how rare this alignment was, because a lot of people may not understand just how rare it was for the Hebrew calendar to line up with the 17th day of the second month to line up with May 21, right? Now, if I just go back 1 year, watch what date the 17th day of the second month lands on. So if you just go back to the year 2010,
Mhm.
the 17th day of the second month lands on a May 1st. If you go back 2000, oops. If you go back 2000, one more year, so that'd be 2009, it lands on an 11th, May 11th. You go back another year, so it'd be 2008, it lands on the 22nd. So the fact that in the year 2011 it landed on May 21 was significant. You're going to see how significant in just a moment. So if you hit this list, it says generate IR 17 list.
Mhm.
It'll basically create a list that will show you, going all the way back to the 1900s, how many times the 17th day of the second month lines up with May 21, 2011, or just May 21. I'll give that a second.
So basically, what you're getting at is that God, he understood time to such a wonderful degree that in order for these two calendars to come into alignment, God would have to take into account the errors of the Gregorian calendar and also,
Yeah, the fact that there's such a misalignment with the two calendars makes it rare for dates to always be consistent. Like you saw when we went to just 1 year. So so the 17th day of the second month lands on a May 21. But if I just go back just 1 year, 1 year, that's 2010. It doesn't. It lands on a May 1st. So that shows you that's a 17-day difference, just going back 1 year. That shows you how much the
Oh,
two calendars
saying
are.
the progression, or there's like a degree of change for each
Right.
set, but the degree is so wide, it makes it even more rare for the occurrence to take place, is what you're.
Right. And you're going to see right now from 1900 to 2200. Well, let's just do the first century. So from 1900 to 2000, that's 100 years. Every single day, you're going to see where the second month of the 17th day lands on in the Gregorian. So the 17th day of the second month for the 1900s, so the year 1900, it landed on a May 16th.
Gotcha.
The next year, it was the 6th of May. For the next year in 1902, it was the 24th of May, the 14th of May. You can keep doing that, and you're going to see it won't land on there until 1924. It lines up with the May 21. Same
So
thing.
is you have like two competing clocks that in order for them to strike at the same time
Yeah.
would be such an impossibility. It only would have to be by God's work of
Yeah, there's only it basically leaves a 3% chance because you're going to see it occurs three times in that. So you have 1924, you have 1962, and you have 1981. So from the 1900s all the way into 2000, it only lands on a May 21 three times, right? So that's 3%. So it's rare. And then the next century, from going from 2000 to 2100, you're going to see it lands on a May 21 in the year 2011, in the year 2057, in the year 2095. So only three times in this century will it fall on May 21. So just so you see how rare. Now, of course, none of these dates are applicable because it has to be God established 2011 to be the exact 7,000 year period. If you did 1981, that wouldn't be an exact 7,000 years. That would be 6,800 and something, right? It's not an exact 7,000. So not only is 2011 an exact 7,000, but May 21, 2011 lines up with IR 17. And so what this means is that, a lot of people question, did God write the Bible? A lot of atheists and stuff. And you have to understand that from when Moses would pen Genesis, right? That date of 4990 BC has always been in the book of Genesis. And so what this means is God had to look down time and know, okay, the Gregorians in this year would establish this calendar. I mean, the month May didn't even exist, in the future because the Gregorians didn't exist. The year 2011 didn't exist because that calendar wasn't created. So in other words, God had to know, okay, if I want to go exactly 7,000 years in the future, it's going to land on this 2011 year, and it's also going to land on a May 21st.
right.
So the alignment is very precise that a man couldn't have seen that because he wouldn't have known that the Gregorians were going to have
Right.
a month called May and have this calendar already established.
Not to mention the infallible proofs track that Family Radio had talked about the 722,500 days that works out to be 5 times 10 times 17 times
Yeah.
5 times 10 times 17.
Yeah.
So even more proofs that work itself out with the synchronization, which makes it even more amazing.
Yeah. I remember we went on the atheist show and I said, how the method for discerning the Bible is comparing scripture to scripture. And I gave them the method of like a simple version of like the lamb that John announced that Jesus was the Lamb of God. Well, the Bible interprets the lamb to be Christ. It's its own interpreter. And so with that idea, so then the guy said, well, you're assuming that basically there's one author. The Bible had many authors, so that's not possible. But he did realize if the Bible had one author, it was possible, right? So he himself realized the Bible has to have one author in order for there to be such a cohesiveness with these things. And so Mr. Campion had arrived at May 21, 2011 in a completely separate way by
Right.
going through the timeline, and arriving there. So the fact that that 7,000 year time path took him to the same year, and the fact that Noah entered into the ark, and it just so happened that that 7,000th year was one of those rare occurrences, 3 out of 100. The 3% occurrence happened to be May 21. So this is why, you're so convinced because of this, how it locked it in. But I never just thought to show this because I never saw how rare it actually was for
Right. Well, thank
for
you for doing that. Hopefully,
yeah.
we'll get some activity out of that, and maybe you could give some examples in the near future.
Yeah, we have an upcoming timeline video. It's still in the works, but it's
Yeah,
definitely
we
going careful detail over a lot of
Lord,
this.
we do have some events, and I forgot to mention, Carl, we got some events July 4th in different locations, and so I just want to encourage you all, if you haven't, planned on doing so, please email info@eBible Fellowship if you'd like to participate. Also, we have the Day in the Word, which is the fourth Sunday in July. We also have the conference coming up September 13, 14, 15. Interestingly enough, interestingly enough, I'd love it if we could, on that Saturday of the conference, I'd like to know if who's interested. After the conference, we can all go tracting. For those who've never tracked before or who would like to track, maybe we can come up with something where a good chunk of us, folks who would like to do so, can go tracting on that Saturday of the conference. So the Friday, no tracting. Saturday, yes, tracting, and then Sunday would be the close of the conference. But for those who would like to make that appearance and you're planning on coming to the conference, if you'd like to go tracting, I think it would be a great opportunity. So please keep that in mind for
Yeah,
those.
it's for the East and the West Coast. So if you're on the West Coast, right, because it's coming up in just a few days. There's a lot of people out on July 4th for both sides of the country. It's such a big event in America.
Right.
So if you live in the area, now's a good time to meet new people, maybe people you haven't met before. And also to track because there's so many people out. So let us know. Write to info@ebiblefellowship.org.
Yep. And in just a side note as well, you had some folks who are tracting that we don't know are tracting. They're not posting videos, they're just being faithful. We saw Will with his shirt, and he does short videos. I've heard even Toby witnessing to loved ones and also folks in his neighborhood. Tosh and Jeremy in Florida, they had an event. They texted me the image. They were in Fort Lauderdale. They were supposed to go to a soccer game, but due to inclement weather, they canceled the show. So they went to a huge bazaar where they have like a flea market, massive, and they were tracting there. And they were able to pass out tracts on a boardwalk kind of area as well. They did have two pictures. So just to be a word of encouragement, if you're not able to tell of these of your tracting or you don't have videos or pictures, just know that the Lord knows, and it's not for us to exploit to the world. We're just doing it to encourage folks and to also let folks who are not aware of this message for them to receive it as well. Yes, Sarah, please go ahead.
Real quick, I wanted to add, like, just wearing the shirt is really, really powerful because, so when you're in places that you typically can't hand out a tract, for example, I was in Starbucks and, I'm standing there and a young kid looks at my shirt and he's like, I really like that shirt. So I go over to him and I'm like, oh, I'm glad you said that. Can I give you this tract? And he was like, yeah, like I'll check it out. He's like, I think he went right to the website on his phone there. So, and we had another encounter like that in the grocery store. A man came up to my mom and he said, why is the world so divided? And, we always have tracts in our back pockets or in our bags. So that's a way I feel like you can the message is loud and clear when you're wearing a shirt. But also, my mom made a little like super easy, like maybe cost $1 lanyard. She just got some construction paper and put it in literally just a little lanyard around her neck. And she wrote a scripture on it and the Bible Fellowship. And people, and we didn't think it was gonna get like any, because it was so tiny. It was such like a little like like junky creation, but people were actually looking at it. They were like, "Wait, what does that say?" So, and then people, they were like, "Okay, I'll go to that website." And so, I mean, like, there's ways you can share, and even just word of mouth is so powerful. We've been like, every time we run out of tracks, we'll just say like, "Hey, can I tell you about my favorite website? This website has brought me great comfort in this time of in these perilous times. Like, please go check it out if you feel moved to."
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Even you can just see God's hand in those things, this like construction paper and you're writing, they're like, what's that? How did they find that? So yeah, great story. Thank you for sharing. So please, folks, just know again, this is not for vainglory or for to be seen. I can tell you, far be it from me to want to be seen, and many folks on this program as well. One of my good friends, Oliver, he tells me some people think he doesn't have any other clothes than the e-Bible shirts that he wears. They're like, you don't wear any other clothes, you know? So what I'm finding is I can't leave home without it. I feel like I'm not being effective without it. So yes, Carl, please go ahead if you still have something that you want to share.
Yeah, I would like to show some signs we got printed. I forgot to show these, but I just wanted to read a comment I think Chris wrote regarding the video subject earlier.
Hmm.
He mentions Matthew 6:1, take heed that you do not your alms before men to be seen of them, otherwise you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. People could be seen of men way back in the first century, but not new to video. So it isn't something that's new to video. You didn't need video for that to be a problem, right? So which means the problem could be present today, even if somebody goes to hand out tracts with no video. So the question comes down to one's heart condition. I just thought that was a good response.
Great point. And that's what I was thinking about with the right hand and the left hand, not necessarily about visual, but yeah, definitely heart. Absolutely.
And then we got these signs printed up. Vincent got these printed up at a Staples. We took the images from the website. So if people aren't familiar with that, you can go to the website and you can click images on the right if you want to get these printed up. There is but yeah, we got the signs up, and they actually made a mistake. Staples did. They gave us a double-sided one for this one. So we actually got a free sign, and they're gonna
I'm
print
not
the.
paying for that.
Yeah, no, they got us covered. These are very big signs, just so you can see my hand. My hand's almost as big as the W, just to give you an idea. These aren't small, even though they may look like it.
Yes.
These are the same exact ones we had printed up in Argentina, but we didn't have the 2033 one. So we're going to hold this one. And then 2033, again, it just mentions the fact that 2000 years from Christ's death and resurrection. And it does show a timeline proof on the back. And it's kind of nice to do that. That way we don't have to worry about putting a question mark or anything. We're just stating a piece of evidence for it.
These signs look so smooth. The blue and the white,
Yeah.
so pleasing to the eye in terms of ease of viewing. So the color scheme is very good. Very good.
Yeah, it's a nice contrast.
All right.
Colors are very important. Understanding that when you build signs that can make a difference between if somebody who even wants to look at it. So believe it or not.
We had some signs I remember before May 21. We had a scorpion emoji. We had a
Actually,
emoji.
the black and white signs that we had for May 21,
Yeah.
those ones were good because I'll tell you why. Um, Black and yellow, kind of like a bumblebee.
Yes.
God designed a bumblebee, right?
Oh yeah. And speaking of, there's a gentleman here holding that sign. Eddie Ramos did that, but that gentleman holding that sign, he just wants to let you know, hello. You may not have heard of him in a while. He just wanted to send a message. He's doing okay. He had a health issue, but he just wants to let everyone know he's okay, and he sends his regards to keep him in prayer. If you haven't seen that gentleman Orette lately, he just sends his regards. He's doing well. He's going through, a bit of a challenge right now, a health challenge, and if he would like it if you could keep him in prayer if possible.
Yeah, good reminder. But yeah, the black and the yellow go together well. So blue and white go together as well. So you want to use those type of colors. And I did see somebody got a shirt printed up. I'll show you that the shirt
Oh, did you
is
know Jill actually got this? She sent me this shirt.
okay. Well, he got one of the 2033 shirts printed up that we have on our website.
Nice.
Blue and white goes together really well.
On his own, right? He just downloaded the image,
Yep.
went to a local print shop, and he said, "I would like a shirt." And
Right. So anyone can do that if you go to our website. That's why we have them here on under images. If you don't know where to go, just click images and um, feel free to print out the shirt designs.
right,
When you click the image, it'll download it to your computer, and then you just you email that to whatever company, Staples or whatever business you're using to have it printed.
very nice, very nice, great. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share before we close? All right. Well, I thank you all again for joining this program, enduring to the end. What a privilege it is to have you all here. This small group of individuals and those who are watching. Uh, if you are one of God's elect, you are not alone. You might be under siege in your home. You could be bedridden. You could be in a nursing home. You could have a major health problem. You may not be able to tract. You might be infirmed. You could be in a wheelchair. You are not limited to tracting. That's not what this program is to just emphasize on. The Lord's will be done in each individual's life. Just know that you are not alone. If you are one of God's elect, there are ways that God will present opportunities. Um, your ministry, if you are one of God's elect, will be specific to the talents that He's given you, whether it's through business or whether it's through singing, or whether it's through giving, whether it's through tracting. Uh, but hopefully, you don't have to exclude yourself from giving a tract every once in a while if you have the ability to do so. If you're discouraged by this, if you're troubled, please don't feel this is a push. I'm just glad that we were able to discuss that tracting is not something that everyone is able to do very easily. Some of us are gifted and talented in that way. But even if I am not that gifted, I still try to do it. And I'm very much blessed by it. And I invite you all, if the Lord is putting it on your heart to do so, to pray about doing it and just see what the Lord will do. Because I've told you this in the previous episodes. There's never been a time when I went out tracting that I regretted it. Every single time after I'm tracting, I'm just refreshed and thankful that I did do it. So hopefully, by God's grace, you may find the same as well. Uh, I see Toby. I'm not sure if you can unmute, Toby, but if you could you close us out in prayer, if possible?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, okay. How's everybody doing?
Good, good.
All right. Heavenly Father, thank you for the E-Bible Fellowship and for this show. Thank you. I really believe I'm one elect, and I hope everybody else is one elect. And I just pray that you would just move us individually and as E-Bible Fellowship to feed your sheep and to proclaim the truth of the gospel to those who are not saved in judgment. I think that's how it works. And if you just bless our families, bless just help us to do your will and just to know that you're all powerful and you can do anything, and that you will in this world in this time, hopefully in 8 years, and your will be done in earth as it is in heaven, and you take us home to be with you soon. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, everyone. May God richly bless you until we meet each other again on another episode. Bye-bye.